Hi, all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is sponsored by me again this week. The world is topsy-turvy in 2020, and that goes for my sponsorship too. So instead of showcasing a sponsor in this spot, once again this week I'm going to showcase Operation Barbecue Relief, something I've mentioned on a few shows now and featured on episode 117. It's a volunteer organization of cooks who galvanize for natural disasters in the region. And I'm sorry to say, they have a lot to focus on for this hurricane season. Visit operationbbqrelief.org to learn how you can help. Now, I can't imagine an Atlanta restaurant scene without this chef. Quatrano has helped steer the trajectory of Atlanta's dining scene for more than 2 decades through one simple principle: showcase local ingredients prepared with precision and presented artfully. She's won numerous James Beard nominations and awards, is very committed to the industry through her presence on boards and with culinary nonprofits, and her restaurants, Star Provisions, Bacchanalia, W.H. Stiles Fish Camp, Floataway Cafe, and Pancake Social, all serve Atlanta in different ways, but all deliciously. Beyond the professional accolades, though, she's also an inspiration to other chefs in the kitchen, teaching young chefs in her organization how to excel and sharing her tireless passion for cooking and community. Welcome to the Southern Fork.
Hey.
Thank you so much for downloading this app and agreeing to chat with me remotely today instead of having the chance to sit across the table from each other while eating pancakes at Pancake Social. So that's what I prefer to be doing right now. So
it's a good day for pancakes.
It's a good day for pancakes. And before we even leave Pancake Social, I know it's your newest, but when I got the chance to visit last year, I just have to say I was really amazed by the floor. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I love to design our businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be my favorite part is the design and build, which I know most people don't love as much as me, but I do love it. So I got to be pretty involved in that aspect of it. And I really wanted a pattern that was unique and proprietary to us. Our graphic designer, JC Lund at Treebird Branding, helped me design that pattern. And then we sent it off to a stencil cutter in Connecticut that sent back these big sheets that were 4 feet by 4 feet. And between my chef there, Evelyn Ling, and myself and our chef from W.H. Stiles Fish Camp, we stenciled every one of those ourselves. Which was,
That's crazy.
It was kind of fun at first, and then it was kind of tedious because there was a ton. It was 300 and something, but But in the end, I think that the effect is so lovely and unique. I love that idea of the kind of Moroccan style tile, but to have tile actually made, custom made was not fiscally feasible. So this was something
No.
we just came up with, and it turned out to be pretty stunning.
And for listeners, each tile has pancakes on it.
Yeah.
So
Pancakes and
unique.
everything else. Blueberries, strawberries, coffee, eggs. Yeah. I
That's
really
right.
love the design.
It's really amazing. So that attention to detail, it's just really a signature of your work. But I've read a bunch in preparation for this interview, and obviously I've had the chance to interact with you over the years and eat your delicious work. But you're mentioned as the mother of the farm to table movement in Atlanta, and we're kind of way past the beginning of that now, and we're in a period where we're really rethinking our food systems and restaurant costs and sustainability of staff and stuff. And I know you're doing the same thing there. Can you talk a little bit about why, as a chef, that's always been important to you?
Well, I think that it all stems from wanting to start with the very best ingredients you can.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, those are the ones that travel the least, that are cared for the most, that have a face behind the production that you recognize and are familiar with. They have a story, all of those reasons. But first and foremost has always been flavor. And then it goes to obvious sustainability, and then to sustainability of our community. Georgia has traditionally been a very commercial, a commercially focused agricultural state. And it was really nice to find these small pockets of farmers trying to do things a little bit differently, or in some instances, they're second or third generation farmers that are trying to do things a little bit differently than their families have.
Right.
Which obviously means caring for the land, the environment, and the product in a slightly different way. So to support that, to have a better tasting tomato, all of those reasons. And we also had our farm that we were fortunate that to have, to kind of learn to grow on, because certainly I grew up in a New York suburb. I was not a farmer. My husband grew up in Hawaii, and although he thinks he's a farmer now, I don't think he was when we got here, but we certainly cut our teeth on that farm and really learned to totally respect what farmers do. So yeah, it's been very important to us. And people say, oh yes, we started it. We didn't start it, but we put our money into it. So instead of buying commodity tomatoes, we bought them from a small farm, which allowed them to buy seeds and to plant more tomatoes and heirloom tomatoes, and then to teach other people how to grow like they grow. And then now we buy tomatoes from those people. So it's been this process that we have, I'd say, been fortunate to be part of, and mostly because we've been in Atlanta now for 28, going on 29 years and doing it. So yes, we've seen generations and proteges. It's been a great full circle. And now it's so important to so many restaurateurs and chefs. It's kind of heartwarming, I'd say.
I feel the same way as a consumer, as a guest. And for me, it's important to try to have at least some of the foodstuffs that come into my kitchen at home, from local sources, because it is nice to know where you get your eggs from and know that farmer and that operation. But speaking of proteges, I remember when I was at the local palette, we did a feature article about all the proteges that all the chefs that you have inspired in the Atlanta community. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to specifically talk to you now, because the restaurant industry is very publicly suffering from a lot of ills, but also just a lack of sustainability. You know, the rise of kind of that celebrity chef idea is fading away. And there's still a lot of young people that are very interested in getting into cooking professionally. What advice would you give somebody getting into the industry now?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Because I feel like I'm constantly writing to friends and people, especially all around this country, and trying to dig deep to find words of encouragement about what's going on in our industry. It's so hard, but I know that the people, a lot of my heroes in the industry, it's in their blood. They're not going to change. They're not going to change careers because of this setback in time. I think they're going to move forward and find other ways. I feel like I have grown in so many ways over the past 6 months, struggling to find ways. This is so crazy if you were to tell me, because I do take so much energy and time in all of the details in our dining rooms, our spaces. I like things a certain way. Everybody knows, oh, she likes this. But I mean, we spend so much energy on all of those little attention to details in the physical building. And of course, that's a major part of our budget is paying for our spaces. But now my focus is trying to find ways to feed people our food not in our space, which is just the craziest thing I would ever think of. So we do these weekly dinners, and I think, oh, what would I like and how would I like it to be if I took this home? And, you know, what kind of instruction? I mean, I think of all of these things, how to change how we do things, how to put energy into food for home. Still using great ingredients, making sure the cooking instructions and the labeling are perfect so that they don't get overcooked or overheated or underheated. Yeah, it's a very trying time, but I still believe in our industry. I still believe our industry is full of crazy, industrious, creative, talented people that find ways to do things. And I feel fortunate that we're in Georgia. See what people are doing in New York, and I'm in awe. Building like tents and opening your streeteries and still serving people. So I don't think that if you truly have this industry in your blood, if you're generous and want to feed people, you're going to find a way. And you're going to find a way in our industry. I think this is opening up all kinds of new doors for people to feed people, because the norm is maybe not going to be in the formal dining room, at least for the foreseeable next few months. So I do think there's a lot of ways to feed people. So I encourage people, if they want to be in this industry, they should look for, and I looked at lately, I've been seeing all of the cooking schools are getting back going. So I do think we're moving forward in teaching and bringing new people up in this crazy industry of ours.
It is crazy. But we need passionate people, right? And because without passion, it's really hard to survive in this industry. In general, it just requires a lot of flexibility and at the same time, a lot of precision, whether that be, calculating your margins, creating consistency in the kitchen, building the right kind of kitchen for the right kind of food that you're doing, all of those things. And you are a teacher. I'm pretty sure you know that. You have a wonderful reputation for teaching people, and now you're working on teaching your guests how to put together their dishes through really good instructions and to-go stuff. But you mentioned in one of the interviews that I read that you spend a lot of time trying to talk to chefs and cooks about overworked food and overworking food. And I've heard that a lot from chefs, that they want good, straight, honest food, but not a lot of them can explain what overworked food is and the difference between that and the kind of food that you are really committed to putting out in your restaurants. Can you kind of explain what an overworked dish is and then how that would be different in your restaurant?
Well, I think the best food always is food that comes from someplace within, like something you remember or something that you had when you were a child or something. I mean, food is associated with so many memories, smells. I think those are the foods that have the most special place in people's hearts. Mm-hmm. And for me, I like food that is simply prepared and pretty natural. So certainly we have gone through a modified molecular, we went through a modified molecular cuisine phase, but we really tried to keep it in shape where we weren't, we kept all of that in check. We weren't changing the actual characters of meat or of produce.
It can be very odd to get that on the plate if you don't know what's coming. And that's part of the fun, too, if you're prepared for it. Right.
It can be fun. I think, most important is that it's delicious. And sometimes I think it's a little to the right of delicious if it's trying too hard. I mean, with desserts, we have this rule. We try to have no more than 3 flavors on a plate. So I think almost with everything, we're always looking for maybe a study in onion, how we can use them 4 ways on a plate, where we have something crunchy and something melts in your mouth and something, something with a little acid. We think a lot about the whole palate and filling the palate. So we have the salty, sweet. We have some umami in dishes, and so that everything kind of balances. But at the same time, we want to do that in the most organic fashion possible, and not meaning organic as in the ingredients, but using the ingredients to create that rounded palette of delicious food where they are best, which is often not manipulating them too much.
Yes. So less, what is it, guar gum or xanthan gum, and a little more technique.
Yeah. We try to stay away from those gums. But then there's the sorghum that's terribly delicious, so we don't stay away from him. But so we stay away from that. And, there's some things that are useful, but most of the useful things we find are also from nature. So some of the seaweeds have this great gelification qualities, so that, we can extract that and use that if we need to. But we try to keep that in a natural state if possible.
And it's a bit of a side, but there's that spinach variety that is very akin to seaweed. It has like a gelatinous kind of rubbery.
Yeah, Malabar. Is that what's called Malabar?
Malabar spinach. Yeah. Yeah. Woo.
Yeah. It's often very slimy. I can't say it's my favorite. I've never mastered that.
No. Well, that makes me feel a lot better because I got that.
I like okra and I understand okra slime. I just never really understand the Malabar spinach slime.
Yeah. I'm not trying to
taste.
hate
I do
on
have
that,
some employees that just love it, especially one of my employees. He's been with us the longest, Suleiman he's from West Africa, and he just loves it. So
It is an
They
acquired
use
taste
it,
for
I
sure.
think, a little differently, like more in stews, where we tend to take spinach and saute it, and then it,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the sauteed spinach that you want.
No.
I remember the front. Yeah, I've been trying. I
It
got it
grows-
from a farm. Yeah, and
Yeah,
not.
it grows really,
it's a
really well
success.
here.
Yes, here too
In the
in
South,
South
yes, so you
Carolina.
see it a
Yes.
lot.
Yes. And I'm thinking, oh, great. I eat spinach almost, or some green every day. And then I'm like, whoa, what is this? This is not what
Yes.
I'm thinking it's going to be. So,
It's better raw, I would say. I think probably
Oh.
raw or in a soup.
I think it's just better to maybe prefer other types of spinach for me anyway. I'm kind of like, I don't need to know how to do that. Well, I'm impressed that you're able to really dig deep and send encouragement to others. I have spoken, obviously, weekly to a lot of people in this industry during this period, and it's hard to lift up your head in some respects.
There was a lot of that. Sure. I mean, for a while, I was having a lot of trouble dealing with my friends that are not in this business. And so I'm 61. And, I have a lot of friends that are and they would say things to me like, oh, I won't go out. Oh, I won't go there. And I was like, you've got to go out. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around the possibility that nobody would ever go out again. Like, get up in the morning if that was the only reality that I had to look forward to, because we certainly are trying to sustain our business on this takeout, but we really need people to come in. And
yes,
to be clear, people are coming in, and we're not having a problem with that. We're practically full on weekends at Bacchanalia. We're fortunate that we have a big room and we can keep everybody spaced and
safe and all of that. Yes. Well, your attention to detail does work well in situations like this. We're able to adapt new protocols and get people in the room. But before we get to the final questions that I ask everybody, I really think of you as the vegetable whisperer in a lot of ways because of that farm kind of connection. And I was wondering what working on a farm before you actually started opening all these restaurants and working with the land, what that's really taught you besides respect. Did that add to knowledge or creativity, or do you just have more connection to the seasons? You're more familiar with that?
Definitely more connection to the seasons. Although that's the one thing about the whole eating local that I find to be kind of so exciting. Like the first strawberry that ripens every year, we're like, oh shit, this is so good. Like you forget. Right. You pick a strawberry and it's warm and it's sweet and it's perfect. And if you have sustained from strawberries that are white and hard in the inside all winter, then it really makes that much more of an impact. So I think, yes, it taught me a lot about seasonality. And of course, where I came from, which was, I lived in Vermont, I lived in Connecticut, New York, and San Francisco. Every place has a different seasonality of ingredients. And here it was a learning curve. We have delicious radishes twice a year. We have delicious carrots twice a year. And we're pretty fortunate here, I have to say. And when you look at a lot, they say probably the most fertile area in this country is the Hudson Valley, which does create some beautiful produce. They can grow for 2 months a year. Well, we grow outside pretty much 12 months a year. So, we're lucky. It was interesting this year. So when we all were down, right? When I say down, I mean specifically for us, we were down from mid-March to mid-May. And we were fortunate. We hooked up with the Jamestown Foundation, and they helped us through Georgia Organic put together these boxes of produce for our staff. And for us, it meant we had about 75 a week where our staff got boxes of produce and protein, eggs, grits, bread, and an assortment of produce, and every week from different farmers. And it was so amazing to watch. I mean, okay, so half of my staff are not chefs, okay? They don't really cook. And all of a sudden they find themselves with these boxes of things, shiitake mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, beets, and just watching. So to do unemployment and all of the other messaging that we tried to do to keep up with our staff, I started these text chains. Some of the text chains had as many as 70 people on them. And we would, I would text them when I needed to. I think after a while they forgot I was on it, obviously, by some errant text.
You're like, hey, I saw that.
Regardless, what I did find was so interesting was them all posting what they were making it from these boxes of produce. And I told food writers, I'm like, this is something that you should write about, because not just, all of a sudden CSA was happening again, right? The CSA boxes were not that was not something that was happening, last year or the year before. It happened 20 years ago or 10 years ago when we were all trying to support farmers, and we would give them money in the beginning of the year, and then we would get a box every week, right? And this is happening with not just art, because it was also how the farmers were getting their food to the community, because nobody wanted food that was sitting out. So they pre-box everything, right? And you'd go to a farmer's market, you'd pre-buy your box for $40. And then you go pick it up and you get this box, a selection of things that maybe you hadn't ever seen before. And all of a sudden you were creating. I think that would be an incredible series of what people learned how to cook during COVID-19 and really how that affected the way they cooked in the future. I thought in the beginning that everybody was going to eat Oreo cookies and Ritz crackers, right? Because in the beginning, everybody was like, oh, packaged food, nothing. Like if you bought produce, you had to wash it and bleach or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was refreshing to see people with a box of local produce trying to muddle their way in through it for dinners for their family. It was fantastic.
Years ago, when I got serious about this food writing thing, I did sign up for a CSA, and I had that exact experience, but I didn't have you on a text thread or 70 of my coworkers. But I remember thinking, like, I've never made a turnip. I'd never worked with turnips before. My grandmother made turnips. I would never buy turnips. And here we are, have this whole serving of turnips and figure out what to do with it. And it's very interesting creatively to put fences on your creativity like that. And but you're named, one of the most admired CEOs. You're a chef. The restaurants are staying afloat. We're kind of rounding a corner on at least understanding that we have to live with this for a while and trying to figure out how to do it. What is keeping you hungry right now?
I would say right now, creating these weekly dinners that we're doing out of Star Provisions. And, I spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about it, and we sell like 12 to 15 a week, right? I think about them all the time. But yeah, I think that is really different for us, like how to make this food so attractive in a package with a little label that says, put me in the oven for this amount of time. But it is what I think about a lot in how to do something. I mean, I think some of those 12 people that buy them are the same each week. So I want to make it really unique and different.
Yes.
And not just the ones we do out of Star, because we're also doing similar things out of Floataway Cafe with our pizzas. And we do, obviously, the Bacchanalia dinner, which is a little more extravagant. But yeah, I think a lot about that. And also, I make sure that I bring one home every week. And I bring it home and I do exactly what it says.
And test it.
We make sure it's what we expected it to be.
That's really cool. I wish I could get one of those packages with just the instructions. That's like the best meal order kind of prep. I love that the local restaurants are doing that. You mentioned that you love the build out, but I want to ask a more theoretical question in general. You've really created and built a job for yourself. And what is one aspect of it that really meshes with an aspect of your personality? Kind of fits like a puzzle piece where you get satisfaction. It seems to fit you.
Well, the design for sure, but lately, I just wrote a note to somebody that wrote an incredible book. But lately, I've been kind of obsessed with anthropology, or I think more just figuring out what it is that motivates, affects, drives people, and both in the positive direction and unfortunately right now in the negative direction, because we're seeing both. And it's a study that fascinates me. I think being a boss, that it is so important that you know what motivates the people around you, in order to have them be as happy as possible at their job, which, means that we all work better together. We all produce a better product. Right. But that right now, I would say, is the one thing, my fascination with people, both, it certainly is something that totally depresses me at times lately too.
Yes.
But it is the one thing that I keep coming back to. I just finished reading this book called Sapiens, which was so interesting about the whole evolution of all of us and how and why. And so it made me really think. But yes, I think that it is important when you work with 140 something people. It's important that you know what's important to them. And always we're looking for a better place or more comfortable place for somebody to work if they want to. I mean, that was a great thing about opening Pancake Social, is that we found a place for people that wanted to be done with work at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, which is unusual in our industry. Really unusual, right?
Right. Not everybody can be in pastry.
Yeah. But even pastry, your work goes on afterward. Like you leave and then somebody else is putting out what you worked on all day. I think that it's really nice to shut the doors.
Yes.
And not have that, something could go wrong with my souffle tonight. Because, yes.
Because someone else is plating it.
Right.
Well, what keeps you up at night?
Like almost everything. I mean, it's almost everything. All the things that make me happy also keep me up at night. I worry, obviously, about the economy and how this is going to affect things down the line. I worry about crazy things. Like, we have a lot of second generation. So a lot of our chefs, prep cooks, managers, their kids work for us now. And I worry what this has all taught these people. I see these great kids come in and they're working so hard, and then they don't work for 2 months and they get this incredible amount of money for not working, and they come back and they do not want to work. I mean, they've only ever seen like this, maybe 6 months, a year of working and then not working and getting money. And I'm worried about the long-term effects of COVID-19 and being down for so long and the economy sputtering, how that's going to affect the psyche of the young people. And we don't have kids, but I employ kids. I spend my life with them. I worry about how the farmers are going to be able to survive this. I worry about ground pollution, the water. I just worry about everything.
Yeah,
but I don't
I'm right there with
anyhow,
you.
So it doesn't matter. I've been making, I don't know if I should even say this. So I always like to do, I have very, very arthritic hands because of all the years in the kitchen. And so I try to do things with my hands when I'm zoning. And, I swore off of politics and TV and news and media. I just said, I'm going to find the information I want, but I'm not going to let it get into my head. So I've been trying to find things to do, and I knit, but I don't like knitting in the summer. So I've been making these
it's
pot
hot.
holders.
You don't want to sit with all that on
pot holders like crazy.
I had the loom, like the little red metal loom, and you do the stretchy t-shirt kind of loops. It's like that cotton stretchy t-shirt loop. Is that the kind that you're making?
Yeah, that's what I do. And I actually use like the sleeves of t-shirts, especially my husband's, work really good. You just cut them in strips. But I also have, so Natalie Channon, she has all of this. Do you know who she is from Alabama, Channon?
Absolutely.
She makes,
yes.
like cotton clothing. Yes. She has, these balls of excess, I guess, woven t-shirt material. And I have tons of those. Don't ask me how I ended up with them, but I do. And they work great too.
All right. So this is pretty intimidating, but I'm going to go for it anyway. I have a special skill, and it's time travel because I have a magic picnic basket. So I can conscript anybody to make anything that you want. I can go back in time, source exactly the kind of thing that you want, and I can cook a little bit, and that's the intimidation factor. I'm not sure I want to cook that much for your basket, but I can make a cake and I can make biscuits if I'm pressed. So I would love to bring you a dream meal, and it doesn't have to go together. It just has to be what you want in that picnic basket. What am I going to put in there?
So, growing up as Italian American, my go-to comfort food is red sauce. And I'm very happy with a bowl of red sauce and a meatball without the pasta. I know that's really odd, but I like pasta. Of course, I like pasta, but I think just red sauce with a meatball makes me really happy, with a salad dressed with red wine vinegar and olive oil, salt, and pepper. It makes me so happy. And bread's nice too. That being said, I'm also kind of stuck on roast chicken right now. So like roast chicken. And I think one of your questions was about smells, and I was thinking, like, what's my favorite? My favorite smell is onions cooking, whether they're underneath a roast in the oven or sliced up with some potatoes. But just that
I love
onions
that
as
smell
they caramelize. Too. I don't think there's any, for me, any nicer smell. I like the smell of bread baking, but not nearly as much as I like the smell of onions cooking. But I think all of that, and then maybe a top to a cake. Maybe not the whole cake, but just the piece you cut off when it's fresh out of the oven.
Oh,
I really like
very
that too.
particular move. I love it. I love that. Yes, and it's warm, and you're like, this is the cooked
and it's
treat.
A little crusty. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, that sounds awesome. And this is not a joke. Roasted chicken is my Jiro dreams of sushi moment. I make it over and over again. And as soon as we finish our chat, I'm going to the grocery store to get one to roast for tonight. So
yeah.
So I'll be right there, and I can't imagine doing it without having onions in the pan too. So I know exactly what you're talking about. That smells like home to me. It's so comforting and delicious. Well, On that note, if people want to learn more about Ann Quatrano and her group of restaurants in wonderful Atlanta, Georgia, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there as well as images so you can see the chef's face behind the voice. If you like what you hear, we are rounding the corner on 200 episodes. And by we, I mean me and my dog Petunia, who's been in the background this whole time, deciding to jingle her collar and all kinds of other things. Love having the opportunity to chat with so many culinary makers throughout the South. And I mean, Anne, you're a woman that took me at least 2 or 3 years to get up the guts to say hello to. So I'm glad that we've finally broken the ice here. So.
Well, thank you for speaking to me. It's been a lovely rainy day chat.
It has. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. You heard me mention Pancake Social today, and that is a restaurant that is located in Ponce City Market, which is a refurbished and rehabbed complex of a building that was a former Sears and Roebuck Company facility, and now it's just a wonderful kind of what I would call like a new millennial shopping mall. And it's usually been my anchor on a visit to Atlanta. I love it for a few reasons. One, it's really close to the Beltline, and that's a great place to walk and hit other restaurants. It's a great way to get around on foot in Atlanta. And if you've been to Atlanta, you know that's not an easy thing to do. Secondly, there's some good shopping there at Ponce City Market. I'm not a huge shopper, but there are some unusual stores, and I like to pop in and visit. And then, of course, there's some super good food, beginning with Pancake Social. Then there is a chai panee. So if you remember my interview with Marwan Irani, you can really get your fill of some Indian street food there. There's some really great wine lists at a wine bar there. And then upstairs, my great friends Nicole and Chris Wilkins of Root Baking Company are located. And they've just opened a new place called Pizza Jeans. And I really need to get back to Atlanta to have some pizza. Last time I was there, I stayed a night at the Ponce City Market Lofts, and that was a wonderful, very luxurious, very modern city experience. Great place to record a couple of podcasts before the Atlanta Food and Wine Festival. And it's just a neat place, a juxtaposition of old and new. And you know I love a good juxtaposition. I love that old building rehabbed and refurbished into something that is viable. And I wrote about it. I wrote about that area. I think maybe it was last year or the year before, AAA magazine. So I'm a Ponce City Market fan, and you might want to put it on your list for next time you're in Atlanta. Until next time, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?